Welcome to the Sowing Hope podcast. This is a show all about implanting hope in our hearts. I'm Bill Snyder, joined by my friend DeSantis. We're glad you're here for our uplifting conversation about faith and how it sustains our hearts through all the seasons of life. Thanks for walking with us.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Sowing Hope podcast. I am Bill Snyder. It is wonderful to be with you all. Thank you so much for joining us today. As always, I'm joined by my wonderful co-host, Dr. Ann DeSantis. It's exciting to use that title, Ann, for the first time. Super excited that you're here on the podcast. And actually, we're going to talk about your dissertation today on this podcast because it's so relevant to everything that we've been doing. So welcome, and excited to be with you on another Sowing Hope.
Yes, Bill. Thank you so much for hosting me, or I should say we're co-hosts together, right? But for bringing this topic to light. I'm so grateful to you, and I'm grateful to our audience here. And to talk about my dissertation, the topic, people have been asking me over the last, maybe a few months, what was the topic of your dissertation? And I basically told everyone that I wanted to wait and make it a surprise. So this is kind of like that first public announcement of what the dissertation was about. So again, Bill, thank you so much.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm excited we get to do the reveal on Sowing Hope. I'm excited about that. So the title is Virtue of Affability, the Virtue of Affability and its Relevance in Modern Evangelization. So obviously that's a academic title, so you've got to help us unpack it a little bit. But as you mentioned, it's kind of things that we've talked about a lot on this podcast over the years, the things that we've kind of been highlighting. But talk a little bit about the title of the dissertation, and also why it's relevant for our listeners and viewers.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you so much for the opportunity again. So affability, what it is a virtue of our faith. And you can learn more about that when you read the Summa Theologica by St. Thomas Aquinas. He talks about it as a moral virtue. So affability is our openness, our friendliness with others, the way that we respond and open ourselves up to other people, whoever they are, whether they're people that we like, don't like, or somewhere in the middle. And as you know, Bill, you said we've talked about a lot of different things on this podcast over the years. And I believe that the theme of this dissertation is something that we've done very many podcasts about, that as Catholics, we need to open our eyes up to the marginalized. And I talk a great deal about that in my dissertation. It is through the lens of Pope Francis and other modern popes, in addition to saints too. And this dissertation is going to be published pretty soon. So please keep an eye on my website at anndesantis.com, because you can purchase a copy of that. I would also like to thank Pontifex University, where I received my doctoral degree. It is a THD, and it took me 3.5 years to complete.
Yep.
I would also like to make a special shout out to my dissertation director. Her name is Dr. Mary Amore, and she's been a guest on Sowing Hope before. She's been a guest on my own podcast, Journeys in Faith with Ann DeSantis. And there's so many other people that I could thank. And if you read the dissertation, you can read that full list of people. I even include Bill Snyder on the inside cover of the dissertation, thanking him for his friendship and support, Bill. And I do really mean that.
Yeah, no, thank you. I know it's been a long journey, but it's finally here, and it's so exciting that you get to use that title, Dr. Ann DeSantis. And it's beautiful. It's wonderful. And when you talk about affability and that friendliness toward people that you maybe like or don't like, or somewhere in the middle that you maybe don't have any objection to, I think we're experiencing that an awful lot, not only in culture right now, post election, but we're also experiencing that a little bit in the church. So do you want to talk a little bit about that and just what's going on with our society right now? And this is an incredibly relevant topic for all Catholics to really engage with, because we need to understand how to be pleasant and kind to people who think differently than we do, right?
Yes, exactly, Bill, who think differently than we do. And we see in politics, there can be the right, the left, the middle. And unfortunately, even in the church, we see that too. We have people who are on the right side of beliefs of the Catholic Church and the left. But when we really look at the truth of the matter is it's the universal church. There shouldn't be these divisions all over the place. But the good news is that there is room in the Catholic Church to practice your faith as you wish. You know, we have people who practice, say, um, the Latin Mass and the traditionalism, and that's completely fine, right? There's nothing wrong with that. And then there's people who are sort of more charismatic Catholics and people who are kind of somewhere in the middle. But we can all come together and look at the truths of everything that we believe. Now, I didn't get into a lot of that specific topic in the dissertation because I really wanted to focus on the moral virtue of affability. And it's really the way that we interact with people in our everyday lives, whether they are people in our own families, people that we see at church, people in our neighborhoods, people that we work with. Sometimes when we want to help others, we think of the homeless, we think of poor people, we think of people that live in other countries. But a lot of times, those people that need our care and our support are people who live pretty close to us. I mean, they could literally be your next door neighbor and you don't even know it. Or somebody in your family, maybe there's a cousin or an aunt or an uncle that everybody sort of ostracizes, like no one wants to talk to this person because they're on the other side of the political spectrum or for some other reason, right? So I really get into that fact that it really comes down to that to be a saint, what we need to do is really know our scripture. And when we look at the book of Matthew 25, when Jesus divides up the sheep from the goats according to how they served, right? Did they give drink to the thirsty and all of these other things, food to the hungry, visit the prisoners? And as I said, those prisoners, they can be people that we know pretty well, not just people that are literally in the prison system.
Mhm.
So, Bill, I don't know what your thoughts are on that. I know you and I are in agreement with a lot of these different things, but that's why I brought this dissertation to life because I found out that I don't think so. I don't think that anybody in modern times has written about this virtue and really brought it to life to say to ourselves, you know what? If we're Catholics, we need to put some things aside and we need to start treating people better. It is okay to use the word nice too. I've seen on social media, sometimes people will kind of say, you know, being nice just doesn't matter. It's not important. Now, right? You're laughing as you get what I'm talking about, right?
Exactly.
Um, Now, we're not talking about being nice and then stabbing somebody in the back, right? Not being nice with like sort of our own hidden agenda. Talking about being nice and friendly and kind in the way that you interact with someone. It's not a bad word, that word nice. I just don't think it is. And as Catholics, some of us have made that word into kind of a word that we shouldn't be using.
Mm.
But I think we need to bring it back to realize that, and remember, I'm not talking about being nice with sort of hidden agendas and hidden sin and things like that. I'm talking about the way that we listen to people, opening ourselves up to listening to the stories of other people, being a listener instead of a constant talker. And you hear that a lot, you know, you see that a lot, whether inside or outside the church. People who don't know how to open their ears and just listen to someone.
Right.
Bill, what do you think about all of these topics? I
Oh,
know that you and I
yeah.
have talked about them so much.
Yeah, I mean, I think again, you look at you reference at Matthew 25, like, these are the qualities we need to have in order to be saints, right? Like these are the qualities that somebody needs to possess to be saints. And you're right, it doesn't mean that we um, hide the truth or try to appease people, but it also means that we again listen first. And there's oftentimes many blockages and hurts and worries and anxieties in that person's heart that they need to bring to the surface and allow the Holy Spirit and allow Christ to heal and come into their life, so that then you can go out with the truth. But if you are not, if you're just trying to throw a catechism in their face and say you're this and you're that and you're not living according this way, like you're not actually really providing help. You may give that person a wake up call, which they may need or may not need. But the reality is that I think that if you have a listening approach and you have use that virtue of affability, I think if you use that and employ that, um, you can make a lot more, inroads. I mean, we've all heard the, term that you get a lot more bees with honey, right? Like, and that's really important, right? Like we should be able to listen and be, kind to one another. Uh, and but also present the truth. I mean, and I think that that's really important too, is that we also have to present the truth and know the truth, because the truth ultimately does set us free. But we remember that the way in which we encounter the truth and share the truth has to be in an affable way. And so I'm really excited that you took on this topic from an academic standpoint, because as you mentioned, there isn't much out there on this. And so to be able to come from an academic perspective and put this into the academic realm, many people are going to be able to draw on this. Many academics and many theologians are going to be able to draw on this as a academic thesis or academic dissertation that they can then use and employ in their studies, in their writing, in their presentations, and ultimately that stuff works its way into the hierarchy of the church, right? I mean, this is how our church operates, and so having you take the time over the last 3 years to do this,
Yes.
is really, really important. And it's so needed because there's so many, areas of, theology and whatnot that we can debate and discuss. And quite frankly, until the end of time. I mean, Thomas Aquinas was one of them, right? He came up with, the Summa and all of these amazing
Hmm.
things, and they're still being discussed and debated. And there's, more and more choruses on it. Augustine too. I remember taking in college a course on the City of God, the book The City of God, which I believe had its own zip code. Is how large it was. So I mean, you know, there. I mean, when you look at it, like what you've done is really made an impact, in the academic community, so that we can learn how to be affable, nice to one another in our sharing of the truth, right? And how we relate with. I mean, think about the own parish. I bet you have examples in your own parish, and I bet you every listener and viewer does, right? Like you think about all of the different guilds in the church, and there's infighting within your own parish. There's infighting within your own parishes. Oh, we need to do this, Father. Oh, Father, can you please help me do that? And then and there's two different groups of people, and I remember working in parishes. I know exactly what it's like. And so this is something that we can look at. This is something that we can read. This is something that we can encounter, so that when you come to an understanding of, hey, wait a minute, you're a human being first. You probably have needs. You probably have worries. You probably have anxieties. You probably have all these things. And by the way, a perspective that you can also share with me, right? They have a perspective and lived experience. The other person that you disagree with has a perspective and a lived experience that you can learn from. So do that, right? Do that.
Bill, you said it so perfectly. I mean, that is exactly what I tried to focus on in this dissertation, and that and more. And you're right. We see this in parish life. We see this in the universal church. I have to admit, I am hoping, I'm just going to put this out there. I am hoping, I'd love to get this in the hands of Pope Francis so that he can know about it, or the Vatican. So we'll see what happens with that. But I mean, that would be a desire that it would be able to reach his hands, because I do think that it is something very important and relevant for our times right now. We're losing people in the church. We're losing people that come to Mass that consider themselves practicing Catholics. And I do believe that this virtue is something that can make a difference, not only for the local church, but really worldwide. So I really do hope that the word gets out there about this piece of writing. Now, I did also not only incorporate, as I said, the teachings of Pope Francis and of the church, right? You said the truth is the truth. That doesn't change. And also other modern popes, such as John Paul II and Benedict XVI, several different saints, also fathers of the church. And I also incorporated into it some psychology, human development, and sociology, because we can't ignore the fact of what depression and anxiety does to people. And that when they feel excluded, when they feel marginalized, when they feel bullied by somebody else, and
Mhm.
I think we've all experienced that in some way, shape, or form in our lives,
Yeah.
is that we need to take a look in the mirror and say, you know what? It isn't just about, of course, when I say the truth, it has to encompass everything. Okay. Everything, even Matthew 25, even the way that we interact with people all around us. So, with the truth only view, and I mean from people who think of the truth only view in a different way than you and I do, Bill, where they exclude some of those social teachings, that's not the way that we are going to evangelize people. We need to encompass the entire truth, which includes the way that we interact with people on a day to day basis. It's not a checklist of, did you go to mass this week? Did you do your rosary? Did you go to adoration? And, are you staying away from sin? All of those things are important. And of course, we need to do those things,
Yeah.
but we need to take it a step further, right? It's not just about avoiding sin. It's about now going out and proclaiming the gospel to the ends of the earth in the way that we reach out to the marginalized. And if we do not do that, we are not really fulfilling the mission of ourselves and of the Catholic Church.
Yeah.
And that is what this dissertation is about. Any thoughts, Bill?
Oh, I think you're so spot on. I think you're so spot on. I'm so glad this work is out there. I'm really glad this work is out there, and it's going to be published soon. And I really want everybody to go over to your website, andesantis.com, and read about it and get it and get a copy of it in your hands. Give a copy to your pastor. Buy a copy for your pastor and hand it to him. Because again, this is relevant. I also like how you bring in the evangelization aspect of it, because you're right. When you look at this, and you kind of said it right. How are you going to bring people into the church? How are you going to evangelize and spread the gospel of Christ without this virtue, right? It's near impossible to do it. The only people you minister to when you don't have this virtue are the people that are inside your tent and that you like, right?
Yeah,
like like
exactly.
that's it. That you limit yourself to preaching to the choir if you don't have this virtue. And that also expresses that we can grow in this virtue and that we can expand ourselves spiritually to have this virtue, right? I I I like the fact that you can grow in virtue, right? It's not something that you can just say, "Oh, okay, well, maybe I have this virtue a little bit." No, you can grow in it. You can push yourself to understand it and know more and bring it into your spiritual life and ask the Holy Spirit to bring you closer to Him so that you can reach out, and it's almost evangelize minute by minute with your life. I mean, whether you're on the bus or on the train, or you're got somebody driving by a homeless person, whatever it might be, to help them get to the truth, you need this you know ability to listen first, help them through their, if they have immediate need, if they have immediate um you know I mean, Scripture says, what, what good is it to pray for the person and offer them well wishes if they're hungry and they need a piece of bread? Like, you've got to give them the piece of bread too. You've got to listen to their need and their desire and their wants and their insecurities and their sin. You got to listen to all that and then go out and actually minister. And the only way you do that is to have this virtue in your toolbox, and to grow in it. Right? You might say, "Yeah, I'm really good at this," but you've got to also grow in it and push yourself to grow in it, because the Lord's going to put you in situations. He's going to put you in the um the circumstances throughout your life that you're going to need to react to. So having this virtue of being able to be listening, compassionate, and also, to use the modern term, nice, um but to be nice and to kind of listen first and then bring the truth in over, and that may be over years, by the way. That, God may put a person in your life that is resistant, that doesn't want it, but by you continually being nice and living in truth, but also being very nice to that person, he may be able to break down those walls. I mean, think about some of the big issues in the church, right? And in our world, right? I mean, everything from you know, sexual morality, all of these things that people are living different ways. Imagine if we had this virtue and were able to, say, play the long game. And I talk a little bit about recently with different people, we need to learn how to play the away game. right?
Mm,
Because because when we play in our own church, right, and like when you play in your own church, it's real easy. It's real easy to play
yeah.
on your, but the only way you win, sometimes you win a World Series, is by winning an away game. You have to win on the road. So that means we have to go into our society and play the away game. And I think that this will really help people play that away game.
What a good analogy, Bill. I mean, I agree with you 100%. And also, when I wrote this dissertation, I wrote it so that, yes, it's very theological and academic, as it should be, right? It is a dissertation.
Right.
But I also wrote it with just the average person in mind, of average intelligence, because I don't think that unless we bring it down to the level that people can understand it, it's not going to make an impact, if that makes sense. It needs to be able to be read easily and understood. It's a shame, I think, that people don't even know about this virtue. It's not something that you hear. I never really heard it until maybe about 2 or 3 years ago. When I started researching, I knew what topic, what realm that I wanted to go in. And then when I found out about this virtue, I really went like, wow, that's what this has to be about. And so I'm really excited to get the word out about it, Bill. And I'm really grateful to you to hosting me on this podcast. I am open for speaking engagements. Now, I'm with Catholic Speakers Organization, and you can reach out to them. But I also want to mention to all of you that Bill Snyder and I also have a speaking engagement that we do together called Truth and Compassion. And we can come out to a parish or an organization near you. So please reach out to me or Bill.
Yeah.
My website is andesantis.com. And, we can come out and talk about all of these things
Yes.
that have to do with evangelization, right? It's all about not only evangelizing people close to us, but near and far, as you said, the away game too. So, Bill, I just want to thank you so much again.
Yeah, absolutely. And this has been such a pleasure. It's great to be doing a Sowing Hope episode. We do hope to get a few more in before the end of the year. And we've got some other exciting announcements as well. So stay tuned for all of that stuff, after the first of the year as well. But super excited to talk with you about this on this podcast, and I can't wait for all that the future has to hold. So please reach out to Anne on our website. Again, it's andesantis.com, and get a copy of the dissertation. Once again, it is The Virtue of Affability and its Relevance in Modern Evangelization, something that is extremely important for the modern church right now. Until next time, from all of us here at Patchwork Art Ministry, may God bless you and your families. Keep beating to your Catholic hearts.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Sowing Hope on Patchwork Heart Radio. For more information about this podcast and our ministries, visit our websites, patchworkheart.org and andesantis.com. You can also follow and interact with us on Twitter at PWH Ministry or Anne DeSantis 2.